Is that the end of Arsenal's title chances? The Gunners held to a frustrating 1-1 draw at the Amex, thanks to João Pedro's equaliser and, I would say, a very contentious penalty award. But are Arsenal's title chances over? What did you make of the performance? Is it a case of Arsenal being over-refereed again, or do we only have ourselves to blame? Let's get into all of that on this episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. Hey, everybody. How are we? Welcome back to the show. Good to see you all, even though the result was not what we wanted, even though the outcome was far from what we were after. When of course, we turned up at the Amex Stadium today, hoping to close the gap on Liverpool to just 3 points. Now, yes, they would have had 2 games in hand, but that psychologically, I think, could have and probably should have been quite significant for Arsenal. It wasn't to be the case. And look, I've gone with the title on the YouTube video of Never a Pen, because I don't think it is a pen. And I'll explain why, and we'll get into it and we'll break it down. But please do not think that I am going to sit here for the next half an hour, 40 minutes, and completely ignore the fact or dismiss or gloss over the fact that Arsenal simply weren't good enough again. And we'll talk about the reasons why the team selection was what it was. We'll break loads of it down. We'll go through a bit of therapy over the course of the next 30 to 40 minutes, etc., etc. But please don't take this as though I'm, saying, well, it's just because of the penalty and nothing else, is wrong. And there's nothing else worth discussing. And there's nothing that we can look at from our own players, from our own team, from our own manager and say, well, actually, that had a real part to play in why the result was what it was, because the game was on a knife edge in the sense of we were in front, but the longer the game went on, the less control it felt like we had. And that's how I saw it anyway, as the game was developing. And at halftime, I was quite content. I thought there were some good moments, some positive moments. I also thought there were some sloppy ones as well, but we'd managed to escape being punished by those moments, and we'd ended up in a situation where we went into the break in front. Good goal. Ethan Nwaneri on the score sheet again. That's the positive, I guess, to discuss. But yeah, a frustrating evening indeed. Big hello to everybody joining me in the live chat box. We don't normally get to do these instant podcasts anymore just because of my sort of work commitments and work schedule, etc., etc. But as I'm at home today, I thought we would do one, which means Patreons, you are going to get a player ratings bit, which will drop shortly after we finish this live stream. So, yeah, don't worry. You're still going to get your bit of exclusive content. But I figured as I'm here, as I'm at home, and as the new man cave is complete. Now, you might be able to hear a bit of an echo because it's pretty much empty. I haven't set everything up properly just yet, but I got my internet wired in today and all the rest of it. So I figured rather than hiding in the corner of a bedroom tonight and I'm raising my voice when my 2 children are about to go to bed, I'd make my way down to the man cave. Now, as you can see, it's bloody cold in here. The heater that is being installed doesn't arrive until tomorrow. So I'm braving it at the moment. It's freezing in North London. Would have been even colder down on the south coast at Brighton, I'm sure. But anyway, look, we're here to talk about the game. We're here to break it down. We're here to try and make sense of exactly what happened. Let me go through, though, some of your comments in the live chat before we do that. Louis G says it was an accidental head clash and Arsenal get punished for it. You'll never see it given again. D1997 says it wasn't a pen, but we were absolutely shocking today. Sammy says the head from Saliba was dumb, no matter whether it was a pen or not. No need, as he's not a threat with his back to goal. Jacob Coleshaw, my good friend, says 100% penalty. I'm sorry, Jakey. I love you, mate, but you are 100% wrong on this. And we all know about your sort of your soft spot for João Pedro, which is no doubt influencing you in this. Anyway, what else have we got? Mr. Smith says incredible intensity from Brighton. Arsenal couldn't match it on the night. It's a game we maybe should have lost. We didn't have the solution or the determination. Fozzie Foster says anything to deflect from Arteta. Got to keep your job at the club, I suppose. I mean, I'm not employed by the club. So, but yeah, whatever floats your boat. Like I occasionally do a bit of commentary on a freelance basis, but I'm not in a position where I need to say certain things to please people. Mo says, come on, Harry, the whole game, and that's the title. We did not deserve to win. I never said we did. I never said we did. And this is exactly what happens when Arsenal sort of, drop points, when they have a bad day at the office. There's this division that sort of comes over our fan base where someone saying one thing means that they must mean that also Arsenal were brilliant. No, if you don't think that was a penalty, it doesn't mean that you think simultaneously that Arsenal's performance was great. You can still be pissed off about the fact that Brighton got what was a very, very strange, in my opinion, penalty. Like the two opinions can coexist. I don't understand why people can't understand that or can't see that. Look, let's break down some of the stats from the match, okay? Let's go through some of the bits and pieces. Let's try and break it down. Let's try and understand exactly what happened, what went wrong. Possession, 55% in Arsenal's favour. But this is more sort of telling for me. XG, expected goals, Arsenal just 0.84. Now, Brighton's was boosted because obviously they got a penalty. And as far as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not the biggest XG or stat head, but from what I understand, if you've got a penalty, that's 1 XG. So their XG outside of the penalty was quite low as well. It was a game where there wasn't a great deal in terms of clear-cut chances. Brighton had 11 attempts at goal. We managed 9, but there was only 4 on target from them and 3 on target from us. Total touches inside the box, Arsenal managed 24. David Raya was forced into 3 saves, and their goalkeeper Verbruggen made just 2. So there's lots of other stats and things and rabbit holes that you can go down through. I don't think we need to do that. I think we need to start right at the very beginning, and we need to start with Mikel Arteta's team selection. Now, I've got this sort of ongoing joke with my brothers because often Mikel Arteta will make a team selection and one of us in our WhatsApp group will get annoyed about it. And it's not normally me, actually. It's normally the other two. But today, the question was posed by my brother, team selection, right or wrong? And he never accepts anybody sort of saying, well, I think it's wrong because he just wants a right or wrong. And if you win the game, it was right. If you don't win the game, it was wrong. Like, that's how black and white we look at it and how black and white he does it. And it always sparks an interesting conversation and debate. And when he messaged me today saying team selection, right or wrong, I text back saying wrong. Now, at the time, I didn't know that Martin Odegaard was ill, and that's why he was on the bench. Obviously, that was a big blow for us, not to have a fit and ready Martin Odegaard. Obviously, Kai Havertz was unavailable as well, still struggling with the illness that has taken him out over the last few days. We understood that I think Martinelli had the illness as well. So there was a few players in that group that were impacted, that were affected. And as a result of that, Mikel Arteta felt that it was right to shuffle the pack a little bit. We said in the build-up to this game that Partey was going to play at right back. Like, that always felt like the go-to for Mikel Arteta in the absence, of course, of Jurrien Timber, who was suspended with a yellow card. But then you move on to the midfield. So the defense was as I expected, but then you move into the midfield, and without Odegaard, you look at it and you go, not a great deal of creativity. So can I get that creativity from deep? Can I find someone who is going to work it into my forwards nice and early, into my wingers nice and early from a deeper position? And Partey normally does that when he sits in that midfield, but obviously he was taken out and put in at right back. So you bring Jorginho in the team, who can, in fairness, do that. Jorginho has shown us in the past that he's a good ball progressor, that he can build up from those deep positions, and that he can offer a little bit of what maybe Declan Rice just lacks when he plays in that 6 role. But the problem was today, for me, quite simply, that Jorginho had a stinker. It's a long time since I've said that. It's a long time since I've watched Jorginho and thought, yeah, that's why people are on the fence about you. That's why people have been divided by you throughout your sort of career. Like, this was the first time in a long time where I felt that way watching Jorginho. And I think when you analyze and assess his performance, which maybe we'll get to do in a bit more detail over the course of sort of the next 24 hours. You can, you can probably see why. I mean, I saw it with the eye test today, I felt, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about that. But I think the eye test told us today that Jorginho just wasn't quite at the races. I'm trying to bring up his stats. Can I get them this quickly after the full-time whistle? Let me have a quick look. If I go to lineups on the SofaScore website, and then I click on Jorginho, so he got a 6.8 out of 10, which is not that great. So here we go. He played 64 minutes, 46 touches, 86% in terms of passing accuracy. It's got to be better. Ground duels, he won 5 of his 7, didn't win a single aerial duel. But this is where it really kind of shows that Jorginho was far from his normal brilliant best. Possession lost 7 times. And so you need that bit of assurance in that midfield, right? You need it even more so, I think, when Thomas Partey's not there. Because if you can't progress the ball from deep in the way that Thomas Partey does it, then the only way, I think, is to push your 2-8s that little bit further on. And if you're going to push your 2-8s that little bit further on, you need someone who's super reliable sitting at the base of your midfield. And today, Jorginho was not that. Sometimes he is. A lot of the time he is. And generally, since he's come to Arsenal, I think he's been a good signing and a good addition. But today, I thought he struggled. I thought he really, really struggled. And then the front three was obviously young Ethan Nwaneri playing from the right-hand side again, deserved to start and got his goal as well. And it was a really brilliant Arsenal team move to create that goal, to make it happen. Some people have sort of gone a little bit overboard, in my opinion, on the goal, because I think that really the goalkeeper should do better. I think it's a really poor piece of goalkeeping, which obviously allows Ethan Nwaneri to beat him from that angle, from that position. But the interplay between Rice, Marino, and Nwaneri in the build-up, and then some of the runs that were made as the sort of move progressed, really did look great and look slick. And at that point, I thought we'd started the game quite strongly in that our passing looked quite sharp. There was quite a bit of zip and tempo to what we were doing. We had a couple of sloppy moments and we gave the ball away, and Jorginho was responsible for that on 7 occasions, as I've just highlighted. But, generally we looked quite good, apart from 1 or 2 sloppy moments. And going in at the break, I have to say I was quite content. I was quite satisfied and quite pleased with the level that we'd hit and the level of our performance, generally speaking. But in the second half, it wasn't quite the same for me. Like it all got a little bit too open. It all got a little bit too chaotic, and maybe not open in terms of lots of chances, but there were too many turnovers. There were too many fouls on our part. That sort of over exuberance sometimes to go and win a challenge that just lands you in hot water and makes the game lack flow, because you're constantly forcing the referee to blow up, and then the restarts happen and all the rest of it. But yeah, ultimately, bottom line, again, lack of creativity. And so he brings Martin Odegaard on to try and rectify that. And he obviously asks Rice and Marino to play sort of more conventional roles. So he brings Martin Odegaard on to try and rectify that. And he also dropped a little bit of a stinker, in my opinion. And listen, he was obviously not well enough to start this game. So I'm not surprised that he came on and was nowhere near his brilliant best. But I thought he was really bad this time. Heavy touches, loose balls, not sharp enough in the turn. And it feels like, we always talk about Arsenal and the set pieces and all the rest of it. And it just feels like we've become too much of a set piece team. Like that should be an addition to what we do. That should be, another string to our bow. It shouldn't be our identity. And it feels like in games like this, we almost give up on trying to create. We almost give up on trying to do the right things sort of in possession. And we start to play this game where, of course, psychologically, we believe that we can hurt teams from set pieces because we've done it so frequently. But we start to play this type of game then where we're like looking for contact so we can go over and get a free kick. We're looking for a corner sometimes when our wide players get down the flank rather than thinking about maybe what the best delivery is here. And people will say, how could you possibly know what they're thinking? How could you say that they're deliberately? I'm not saying they're deliberately not trying to score. What I'm saying is that subconsciously, you will start to play for set pieces because the narrative around Arsenal and set pieces is so big. But you're not going to do it every week that way. And I'm in a really frustrated position right now because I do believe that tonight was the night that when I said a few weeks ago the door was ever so slightly open for Arsenal to creep back into the title race and that we were definitely getting closer and we were definitely sort of getting to a point where maybe we could be considered as serious challengers again. Just when you start to feel like it's turning around, we get hit by a massive blow like the result tonight. And listen, if you're 1-0 down at Brighton away is not an easy game. You're 1-0 down at Brighton and you claw it back and you make it 1-1 and you take a point. You look at it through a very different lens and you say, good point. This was a bad point. There are good points and there are bad points. And this was no doubt in my mind a bad point. Really, really, really frustrating game. Really, really frustrating to watch. Yeah. Anyway, I was talking to Martin Odegaard. Let's sort of dive into that a little bit more because I talked about Martin Odegaard giving the ball away a lot. I talked about Martin Odegaard not being anywhere near the level that we know he's capable of. And again, you're talking about a player came onto the pitch, 26 minutes played, 67% pass accuracy. Not good enough. And I know that when you play in Martin Odegaard's position and you're in the team late on in a game and you're looking to always play that killer pass and to be the guy that opens up the opposition, that does mean that a lot of the time you're going to be trying the difficult passes, which are less likely to come off, which then do impact these types of stats. I do consider that and take that into my thinking when I'm having these conversations and when I'm having these discussions, for sure. But you could just see that he was off it. You could just see that he wasn't anywhere near the level that we've become accustomed to getting out of Martin Odegaard. And it's been the case now for a little bit, hasn't it? It has. Okay, let's move on. We've been talking for 17 minutes now. So am I allowed to bring up the penalty? Am I allowed to bring up the penalty without being accused of saying that's the only reason that we didn't win the game? Because I don't think it was the only reason that we didn't win the game, but it is a disgrace of a decision, in my opinion. And I want to bring up something that I've seen going around on X over the last sort of half an hour or so. I watched it just before I made my way down to the man cave to record this. Let me just bring it up. And once I do, I will share it on the screen with you guys. Hold on, just waiting for it to load. Yeah, new wide internet. It's supposed to be quick, apparently. It's loading. It's loading, I can assure you. Maybe I'm not going to be able to bring this up right now, and I have no idea why, but maybe that's just going to be the way it has to be. But anyway, basically what I was going to talk about is the fact that it's very, very clear when you watch the replay back and you slow it down that William Saliba did get a touch on the ball after João Pedro before the clash of heads with the two. And so that makes it a wrong decision, in my opinion. Like whenever we're looking at fouls inside the box, whenever we're looking at whether or not something's a penalty, the first thing that you look for is, did he get the ball? Because if he did get the ball, unless he's reckless and unless he's dangerous, then, actually it's probably okay. That's the way that generally these things go. However, in this instance, first of all, it looks like nobody's looked at it closely enough to recognize and realize that William Saliba has got that touch on the ball. Because if they do, I think then at the very least, you send Anthony Taylor over to go and have a look and make his mind up, right? That's the way it should work, surely. That's clearly not happened. Clearly not happened. But on top of that, it's just such a weird thing to give a penalty for. Like, it's clearly just a clash of their heads. Like, João Pedro's going nowhere. I can't remember in my entire life ever seeing a penalty like that. people will say, well, that doesn't make it not a penalty. And that's fair. That's a fine sort of agreement to have. Look, I don't think it was a pen. In fact, it was never a pen for me. Do I accept and acknowledge that Arsenal were poor on the day and that their problems were much bigger than that? And that actually maybe bringing this up is giving them a bit of a pass, because ultimately we didn't create enough again. We weren't potent enough again. We never put a game to bed that we should have done again. And so really those are the real problems and the real issues and the things that we should be really focused on. All of that is true. Every single bit of that is true. But that doesn't mean that you can't take issue with the penalty award. And I really, really do take issue with this penalty award, because I am adamant that William Saliba gets a slight touch on the ball after it comes off of João Pedro's head. It just comes off the top of William Saliba's head before he clashes heads with João Pedro. And what's the point in having VAR and this level of forensic analysis that is now available to us? We've seen them over referee so many times, but obviously not this time, of course, because they don't want to. I wonder why. And also, Anthony Taylor's performance really wound me up today. And it wasn't just that. It wasn't just the penalty. It was so much more than that. It was so much more than that. It was how pedantic he was about every single little thing. Booking players for taking a corner too slowly when it happens all the bloody time. Book everyone then. Moaning about where we were taking throw-ins from, moaning about where we were taking free kicks from. He was constantly on our case today. And, people say that Arsenal have developed this kind of reputation whereby people talk about them as dark arts and all the rest of it. And so referees are now responding to that, and it's reflected in the way that they're officiating games. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. If we go through some of the performances today, let's do a little bit of that. I'm not going to give you the player ratings because we're going to do that over on the Patreon side of things, but I'll give you a couple of lines on each player. David Raya, I thought he did okay today. I can't really sort of complain about David Raya's performance. Thomas Partey did okay as well, but he's just not a right fullback, and that's clear to see. William Saliba and Gabriel, always tasked with playing a high line, even away from home, and normally handle that really, really well. William Saliba, probably a little bit clumsy in the way that he went into the challenge, but I think will feel really hard done by when he watches that back. He'll have known that he got a touch as well because he'd have felt it. Gabriel was good again. Calafiori, pretty good as well. No real complaints with him, apart from getting sort of roasted down that right-hand side on a few occasions. There was one where Brighton sort of flashed the ball across the face of goal, a move that developed down his side. He was clearly not switched on initially, and then he had a quite strong reaction from Gabriel, who sort of ran over to him and just sort of had a go at him. I don't think he liked the way that he handled that particular situation. Rice, put it in as he always does. Strong runner, physical, all the rest of it. But he was playing as a right-sided 8 today, and I don't know that really works for Declan Rice. Jorginho, as I've said, had a really poor game in my opinion. Mikel Merino was okay. Waneri, really good half. Was Mikel Arteta wrong to take him off at half-time? I know he was on a yellow card, and I know that we were playing against Brighton, and I know that there's some scars there about sort of, what could happen if you go down to 10 men and we were in front, and was there any need? And that's probably how he looked at it, to sort of take that risk and take that chance. Yeah, I mean, did he really need to make that substitution? There is talk that he was injured. I don't know that. I'm recording it right away, so I'm not sure. Haven't heard anything about that. There you go. You guys are saying it in the chat that Arteta said there was an injury, so that's fair enough. That's fair enough. On the other side, Leandro Trossard, I felt like he started the game quite brightly, but faded as it went on. Gabriel Jesus worked tirelessly, but again, didn't offer that killer instinct and sort of that spark that we needed in the final third. And the problem is, everybody has off days, right? So I'm not under any illusions. I don't look at it and go, oh, well, we're not allowed to have off days and everybody else is. I'm a very, I think, grounded and realistic Arsenal fan. However, these off days are happening way too often now. Like there was, the Ipswich game that we just about got through. There was the Everton game where we didn't play very well, and obviously we dropped points in that one. There was the Fulham game not so long ago as well. So these performances whereby we lack ideas, we lack creativity, we lack spark. And I know people will argue and make the case that there was no Havertz today, and obviously Odegaard wasn't fit enough to start, and that's a big part of our creative force. No Saka as well. I agree with that. I do. But we've got to find different solutions. And one of the things that I've praised Mikel Arteta's sides for most over the last, I would say, I don't know, 3 years, 2 years, is the fact that they've been able to sort of adapt and change things on the fly and constantly regenerate and make themselves different so that they can cope with absences, so that they can cope with different teams, different tactical approaches, all the rest of it. But right now, we're not really finding solutions. And Mikel will probably say, well, we lost Saka, but Nwaneri's come in and Nwaneri scored a goal. And he played quite well at Brentford the other day as well in a game that Arsenal won. Yeah, okay. But is what Arsenal are today sustainable enough to close the already huge gap between ourselves and Liverpool, particularly given that Liverpool just look unrelenting in their brilliance at the moment? So look, I expect them to turn up against Man United tomorrow and completely annihilate them, don't you? So, putting the points on the board for ourselves today would have been big because it would have closed that gap to 3 points. And that would have been great. And it would have helped. And it would have been a psychological thing for Arsenal. And it would have been something psychological that maybe Liverpool were slightly impacted by. But Man United are such a bad side. I just can't see them getting anything out of tomorrow's game. And even if they do, you'll then look at today's game, I beg your pardon, this evening's game, and say, opportunity missed them, wasn't it? If Liverpool did the unthinkable and dropped points against Manchester United, you'd then look at that and go, obviously you'd be pleased, and some people would package it up and say no damage done. I would prefer to say no, actually, mate, that is Arsenal missing a major opportunity. So, yeah. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it there. If you're interested in the player ratings, come over to the Patreon side of things. The link is in the description below, patreon.com/Chronicles AFC, I think it is. It's been a long old day, a really, really long old day. I've been moving furniture. I've been getting the last bits into the man cave. We've been wiring. We've been decorating. We've been doing it all. And I'm knackered. And I sort of started really early in the morning today because I wanted to get everything done and smashed out so that I could do tonight's pod from here, so that I could sit down in peace, watch the game, and then waddle down to the little studio area and make today's podcast. And it's turned out that the game was a massive letdown. Doing the podcast was nowhere near as fun as I hoped it would be. And yeah, we are where we are. Disappointing night, but we'll be back tomorrow with more. So stay tuned to the Chronicles of Aguna. Remember, like, subscribe, all the rest of it. I'll just quickly summarize by saying that, yeah, underwhelming. Massively underwhelming in terms of our performance. Frustrated and agitated by the refereeing display. Again, not for the first time this season. Disappointed by people being out, injuries, all the rest of it. Not necessarily something we can control at all times. And, it just feels like everything is conspiring against us winning the Premier League this season. And that hurts because this was meant to be our year. We were meant to be the next in line. So it does hurt, but just means we're going to win the Champions League instead, doesn't it? Thank you very much for listening to the Chronicles of Aguna. I'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye.